Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget-friendly, and delicious. If you'd like to get some weeknight meal ideas for your family, then just keep watching. First up, I'm going to make sliders. This is a Copycat Ruby Tuesday recipe. They used to sell sliders and I used to get the smokehouse version of the sliders and they were delicious, but they stopped selling them. So I started making them at home and they're really good. First up, I'm going to make the sweet chili sauce. Now they don't carry this on their menu anymore, but this Copycat recipe is really close to what it used to be. So for that, you'll need some mayonnaise, paprika, cayenne pepper, some sambal, and sugar, and we're basically going to mix all of these ingredients together, and I will include the recipe in the description box below. Next up, to go on top of the sliders as well as the side, I'm going to make these Alexia onion rings in the air fryer. And then for my slider patties, I just took a pound of ground beef that I got them marked down at Food Lion, and I formed them into 6 little slider patties. Next, I'm going to season both sides with some Lowry seasoning salt. You can use whatever seasonings you like. And then I'm just going to sear these in the cast iron pan on both sides until they're cooked to my liking. I added some sliced American cheese to my slider patties during the last minute or so that they were cooking. Now to assemble the sliders, I'm just going to take a Hawaiian roll, slice it in half, add my slider, add an onion ring, and then some barbecue sauce, and that's it. Now these are totally customizable. You can add whatever toppings you'd like. And here are the finished plates. So I have the onion rings, the sweet chili sauce, and the sliders. This was so good. You don't have to make the sweet chili sauce if you don't want to, but I really like it. It was one of our favorite sauces and they stopped carrying it, but that was dinner tonight. Tonight for dinner, I'm going to make something super quick and easy. So I have a package of these Adele's chicken pineapple bacon sausages. These are delicious. If you haven't tried these, I recommend you giving them a try. I don't buy them a whole lot because they're pretty pricey. They're almost $6 just for this package of 4. But if I can catch them on sale, I like to grab a couple packages and put them in the freezer. And then I'm going to make this box of Kraft cauliflower mac and cheese. For the sausages, I'm just going to cook these in my air fryer on 400 degrees for about 7 or 8 minutes or until they're cooked all the way through. Next up is the macaroni and cheese. I'm just preparing this according to the package directions. So I'm just going to boil my noodles, drain them, and then add in the butter, the cheese packet, and the milk. And my little secret, anytime I'm making macaroni and cheese from a box, I always like to add in a slice of American cheese. I just feel like it makes it taste even creamier and cheesier. So if you haven't tried that, I recommend you giving that a try. And here are the finished sausages. Please pardon my air fryer. I had made myself some chicken strips for lunch, so that's why it looks a little dirty. And then here are the finished plates. So my husband likes his sausages on buns and then ketchup, mustard, and relish. And then I have the macaroni and cheese. For me, with these particular sausages, I just like to eat them plain as is. I don't like any condiments or a bun, but that was dinner tonight. Tonight for dinner, I'm making Tuscan chicken. I've made this recipe a couple times before and we really enjoyed it. I will again include the recipe in the description box below for this. So to get started, I just have my pan. I believe this is over about medium-high heat. I've added a little bit of oil. Next, I've taken 2 chicken breasts. These were pretty large, so I cut them in half. I'm going to sprinkle both sides of the chicken with some salt, pepper, garlic powder, as well as some Italian seasoning. Then I'm going to add my chicken and I'm going to sear the chicken on both sides. Next, I'm going to cover this with a lid and cook this until the chicken is cooked until it's 165 degrees. How long it takes will really depend on the size of your chicken breasts. Mine took about 9 or 10 minutes. These were pretty thick. And here I'm just checking the temperature. And then as soon as they're done, I'm going to pull them out and remove them to a separate dish. And then I'm going to place some butter into my pan. Then I'm going to add my diced onions and my chopped sun-dried tomatoes. I'm going to cook that for about 2 minutes and then stir in some minced garlic. I'm going to cook the garlic for about a minute and then I'm going to add in my chicken broth. This is just some water with chicken bouillon powder. I'm going to allow that to cook for about 1 or 2 minutes. Then I'm going to add in my heavy cream, my Parmesan cheese, and my spinach and give that a stir. Next, I'm going to add my seasonings. So I'm using some Italian seasoning, garlic powder, salt and pepper, the same that I used for the chicken. You can use whatever seasonings you'd like and season it to your taste, but I'm going to add that and then give that a stir and cook that for another couple minutes. I'm then going to take some of this frozen broccoli that I got from Aldi, and I'm going to place this in the microwave and cook it according to the instructions on the back. Next, I'm going to take my chicken breasts and add them back into my sauce. I'm going to spoon a little of the sauce over the chicken, put a lid on this, and then just allow this to simmer gently while my broccoli is finishing. Now on this back burner here, I have some potatoes that I have washed, peeled, and chunked, and I just boiled those until they're tender. Now you can serve this chicken over pasta or rice. I'm going to serve this over mashed potatoes. So to my drained potatoes, I'm just adding some butter, salt and pepper, and then I'm using some of the whipping cream that I have left over. I usually just use milk, but I'm just using this to use it up. And then I'm just going to mash those together and we'll have that with our chicken. And here's the finished chicken along with the mashed potatoes and the steamed broccoli. Once this was cooked, I just placed this into a bowl and seasoned it with some salt and pepper. And here are the finished plates. So I have the chicken, I served the sauce on top of it, and then we have the mashed potatoes and broccoli. Dinner tonight was so good. Tonight for dinner, I'm making chicken fried steak. First up are the sides. I have a can of sweet peas that I've just drained and added in this small pot with a tablespoon of butter and some salt and pepper. I'm just going to cook those on low. And then for the second side, I have some leftover mashed potatoes I'm going to warm up with a little bit of butter and extra milk. For the chicken fried steak, I have this cube steak that I got on markdown at Target. So I'm just going to season both sides of the cube steaks with some salt and pepper. I will include the recipe for this in the description box below. I don't use the same measurements, but I do use the Pioneer Woman's method and ingredients. So first in a dish, I'm going to add a couple of eggs as well as some milk, and I'm going to whisk that together really well. I'm then going to set that aside, and in this next dish, I'm going to place some flour, and then I'm going to season my flour. I'm going to use some cayenne pepper, some paprika, some seasoned salt, and some salt and pepper, and then I'm just going to stir that together really well. I've got some vegetable oil in a skillet over about medium-high heat, and I'm just bringing that up to temperature. Next, I'm going to get started on battering my steaks. So I'm going to take them, dip them on both sides in flour, then an egg, and then back in the flour. And as you can see, I tried to use forks, but I switched over to my hands. Yes, it makes your hands a big mess, but I really like to use my hands so that I can really pack on the flour. Once my oil is hot, I'm going to put my steaks in there and cook them for about 2 or 3 minutes per side. You really do not want to overcook cube steaks. If you do, they are like shoe leather. So just 2 or 3 minutes per side. And then I'm going to remove the steaks to a paper towel lined plate. I'm going to drain off that oil. And then in this same skillet over about medium heat, I'm going to add in some about 2 tablespoons of oil. And then I'm going to add in the flour. And this is just the seasoned flour that I breaded the cube steaks in. And I'm just going to whisk that together. I don't have exact measurements. Like I said, I'll link the Pioneer Woman's recipe in the description box below where she does provide measurements. But I've made gravy so much that I just eyeball it. So once that flour is cooked for a minute or two, I'm then going to whisk in the milk. And I'm just going to continue to whisk that until it thickens up. And then I'm going to season this with some additional salt and pepper to taste. And here are the finished plates. So we have the steaks along with some gravy, then peas, mashed potatoes, and on my husband's plate, I have some pickled beets for him. Dinner was so good. I really don't make fried foods a whole lot, but I'm so glad that I made it this night. I'd been craving it and it was delicious. This night was New Year's Eve, so I cooked up the steaks and lobster tails that I was going to make for Christmas Day and ended up not making it, so I saved it for New Year's Eve. So to get started, I'm going to take these filet mignons that I got at a great deal at Kroger, and that's a big tip. Watch for meat sales. Buy meat when it's on sale. That's a really great way to have things like filet mignon at a more budget-friendly price. To go along with that, I'm going to take this lobster macaroni and cheese that I got from Aldi, and I'm just going to cook the macaroni and cheese according to the package directions. I also have a couple of lobster tails that I got on sale at Food Lion. Again, watch those meat sales. So for my steaks, I always like to set my steaks out at room temperature for at least an hour before I cook them. So these steaks have been out for an hour, and I'm going to season both sides really well with some kosher salt and pepper. And then I'm going to set those aside and get started on my lobster tails. So I have my oven preheated to broil. I'm going to take a couple of tablespoons of butter and melt that in the microwave. Next, I'm going to take the lobster tails and I'm going to take some kitchen shears, and I'm just going to cut the top of the shell lengthwise. You want to really be careful when you do this. These shells can get pretty sharp. And then I'm just carefully peeling apart the shells just a little bit. So now that my butter's melted, I'm going to add some salt, pepper, garlic powder, and some paprika to taste, and I'm going to stir that together. Next, I'm going to take a little bit, maybe about a half a tablespoon of butter, and just put that on my lobster tails and let them kind of marinate for just a few minutes while I cook the steaks. Now, I know most people have a way that they like to make their steaks. Here's what I like to do. First, I always use a cast iron skillet. I feel like you get a good sear on it. I've got my cast iron skillet turned on to about medium-high heat. I'm going to add just a little bit of oil, and then I'm going to cook my steak on all sides, and I'm going to cook it for about 5 to 7 minutes on each side. Now, this completely depends on how thick your steak is and what temperature you like it to be cooked to, but I'm just going to cook the steaks until they're cooked to my liking. And once they're almost there, I'm going to add a pat of butter and cook it for a few seconds on that side. And then I'm going to turn the steak over and cook it for another few seconds and then remove it to a plate. I'm going to cover it with foil and allow it to rest. Next, we love sauteed onions and mushrooms with our steak. So in this same skillet, I'm not going to wash it out. I'm just going to add a little bit of butter, and I'm turn my heat down to about medium. I'm going to add in my sliced up onions and mushrooms, and then I'm going to season it with some salt, pepper, and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, and I'm going to stir that together and then just allow it to cook while the steaks are resting about 10 minutes. And at this point, I'm also going to put my lobster tails into the oven. And here are the finished plates. So we have our steaks with the sauteed onions and mushrooms, the macaroni and cheese, and the broiled lobster tails. I did have a little bit of butter left over that I served along with the lobster tails for dipping, and that was dinner this night. This was so good. Next up, I'm going to share with you our dessert. I don't typically make desserts, but this was a special occasion and I wanted to try some poached pears. So here's what I did. I took some vanilla extract, a couple cinnamon sticks, about half of this bottle of sparkling rosé grape juice, about a half a cup of sugar, a cup of water, and some orange peel. I added that to the saucepan. I brought that mixture to a boil, and then I added my pears and I simmered the pears for about 20 minutes until they were tender. I then removed the pears and then continued to boil that liquid for about 20 minutes until it was a syrup. And then to serve it, I drizzled the syrup over the pears and then served it with some vanilla ice cream and some chocolate syrup, and this was delicious. This final day was New Year's Day, and so I had a ham that I got on sale at Food Lion. You can see here, it was a 9.8 pound ham for over $17 that I got marked down to $4.50. Again, I can't say this enough. Watch your meat sales and your markdowns. So I've thawed this from my freezer and I'm going to bake it in the oven. Now for my glaze for my ham, I always use brown sugar, Dijon mustard, and a little bit of honey. I don't have exact measurements, I just eyeball it. But on this particular day, I found this can of pineapple juice in my pantry that I wanted to go ahead and use up. So I have this disposable pan. I like to use disposable pans when I can to make my ham, just because with all this sugar, sometimes it can brown. So I'm going to place the ham inside my disposable pan. I've added that pineapple juice, and then I'm just going to put together that glaze. Again, I've just added the brown sugar, Dijon mustard, and honey. And I add a little bit of hot water just to melt the brown sugar a little bit. And I just stir all of that together. And I don't believe I said this, but I've got my oven preheated to 325 degrees per the instructions on the package of the ham. I'm going to take the glaze, pour it over the ham, and then I'm going to cover this with aluminum foil, and I'm going to cook this again according to the package instructions. And I apologize for the lighting in these shots. This was a gorgeous day. It was like 73 degrees and bright and sunny, so I had the windows open, so I apologize for that glare from the sun. And I'm going to place this ham onto a cookie sheet. These disposable pans aren't very sturdy, so I'm just putting it on that to make it easier to take in and out of the oven. And here's the finished ham. I'm just going to allow it to cool for a few moments before I slice it. To go along with the ham, I made my cheesy broccoli rice casserole. I have a whole separate video on this that I will include in the description box below. And then I did some glazed carrots. I've showed this in a previous What's for Dinner video, and I'll share that also in the description box. And then I made some homemade potato rolls. I made these a while ago. I just put them in my freezer, so I just warmed them up tonight with some butter. And here are the finished plates. So we have the casserole, the carrots, the ham, and the rolls, and this was so good. I hope that you and your family had a very happy new year, and thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.